Good morning and welcome to this webinar. I'm joined by Julien Rio of RingCentral. Julien, thank you for joining me this morning.
Well, hi, Patrick. Thanks a lot for inviting me.
No problem at all. I understand it's very hot in France at the moment. We haven't quite got that yet in the UK.
Yeah, that is pretty hot, but the worst day is actually going to be tomorrow. So touch wood, today is still fine.
Well, at least you're wearing your nice, cool RingCentral bomber jacket to cool you down.
Absolutely. Either you love your brand or you don't. The weather doesn't matter, right?
No, absolutely. You have to sacrifice personal comfort for that. So, Julien, we should get on with it really, rather than me talking to you about the weather. I know something that you've been particularly focused on, and that RingCentral are particularly focused on, is the potential for digital media and the importance of that within modern customer experience. So you've got a really interesting topic to talk with us about today, which is how to start your digital media strategy. And first of all, I wanted to understand from you, why is digital and why are digital channels so important in the customer experience?
Well, I think there are a few things here. The first obvious thing is consumers' habits have changed. I mean, you are a consumer, I am a consumer. What do we use on a daily basis? We don't really send emails anymore. We don't use the phone anymore to talk to friends, to talk to family, and so on. We actually use digital on a daily basis. How often do you use Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or iMessage or any of these other channels, plus Facebook, plus Twitter, and so on, or Instagram, versus actually calling people? And even when we do call people, we tend to first send them a message to ask if that's the right time to call. So our habits as consumers have shifted from traditional channels to consumer channel. Just if you wanted some figures, 80% of the adults population is using messaging apps on a daily basis. If you talk about teenagers, we grow as high as 91% of the population using messaging app on a daily basis. And the reason why we do that is it's just so convenient. I mean, having a phone conversation means being available during the entire conversation. It means the other person on the other side of the line is actually available as well. It means that the signal is going to have to be good throughout the entire conversation. If you call a company, it may mean holding time. It may mean paying for the conversation. So all this is highly inconvenient, while new digital channels, because they are mostly asynchronous, it gives you the freedom to send a message when it's convenient to you as a consumer. It gives you the freedom of reading the company's feedback when it's convenient to you. Once again, so you basically control the conversation, and that completely changes the game because it's all about convenience. Now, from a brand perspective, being available on digital channels usually means higher NPS, Net Promoter Score, basically the probability that your customers are going to recommend your brand to their friends, their peers, their family, and so on. And the reason for that is you bring them convenience, you make them happy, you make it easy for them to engage with your brand. They're satisfied, they recommend your brand. But the last reason probably why digital is so hot right now is just because other companies are doing it. And if your competitors are doing it, if your competitors find a way to be closer to their customers, then at the end of the day, you have to do the same. Otherwise, you lose market share simply because customer experience is such an important part of every business success.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so much about that consumer preference, and it's a really good point that the communication channels you might use to talk with friends or family are translated into the business world. But from my perspective, Julien, I thought, aren't digital communication means still, used much less of the time in comparison to people phoning up organizations for customer inquiries?
Well, it's still very true. For many companies, at least, it's still very true. I mean, the volume of phone conversations, when we talk about customer engagement, right? The volume of phone conversations versus digital is still much larger. But the thing is, not only is it changing, and it's changing fast as new generations that are digital savvy, they were born in a digital world, are being raised. Obviously, this is changing. And there are multiple companies for which actually the game has changed already. I can give you a couple of examples. PMU is a French company. It would be the equivalent of Ladbrokes in the UK, where it's about betting, horse racing, this kind of thing. And they went through an amazing digital transformation a few years back because they understood that the business was going digital and they had to grow with their market. So they went through digital transformation, and today, working with RingCentral, basically what they do is the whole volume of messages coming through messaging only channels is actually larger than the whole volume of phone calls. And here I'm not even talking about social channels, I'm not talking about emails, I'm not talking about live chat, I'm purely talking about messaging. That's more volume coming in than the phone. Another example is Ooredoo. Ooredoo is a major telco in both Asia and Middle East that we work with for a few years already. And within the span of 2 years, they switched from 75% call and 25% digital to 80% call and 20% digital. And what they did here, and that's extremely important, is they never forced people to give up their phone line. They never forced people to use digital. They just made it available. And naturally, people switched from something that was inconvenient to them to something more convenient to them. And when I hear businesses telling me, we don't need digital because our customers prefer phone, the thing is, most of the time is because you only provide them with that solution, which is phone, so they use it because they have no other choice. But when you start making yourself available on digital channels for your customers, then you immediately see that they're switching, sometimes fast, sometimes slowly, but the convenience makes a whole difference for the customer.
Yeah, so effectively we can see that the trend of that change coming, and if you enable it within a business, and that example from Ooredoo that you mentioned, so that they went from 75% call and 25% digital to the reverse, 80% digital and 20% call.
Absolutely, and within just 2 years. So what they did is they opened a first digital channel, a couple of months later a second one, then a third one, then a fourth one. Some of the channels became very popular very quickly. They use things like Viber, like Facebook Messenger, like in-app messaging, that caught up very quickly with the population. Some other channels were less popular because it's always a trial and error, right? You never get things right with the first shot. But going slowly, adding new channels really changed the game for them. And at the end of the day, not only is it better for the company, but these
applications that it might be RingCentral are a global company, and so are lots of your customers. I suppose it depends massively by geography in terms of what's popular in each region about what particular messaging app might be most popular. So, but before we go any further, we hear a lot about omni-channel, and we've heard a lot about omni-channel within the contact center. But you're talking about omni-digital. What's the difference between omni-channel and omni-digital?
Well, in the past, we were talking about multi-channel, we were talking about cross-channel, then we talk about omni-channel, and yeah, you're right. We tend to talk about omni-digital. There is a major difference. Omni-channel is about being available on multiple channels, which is a great thing to do. OmniDigital is about being available on all the channels that make sense for your customers, but on purpose, we remove the word channel from the equation because the channel actually does not matter at all. The reason why customers are getting in touch with you is because they either have a problem or some kind of question, they need some help, right? And the customer himself does not care about the channel. The customer just cares about the answer to his question or to his problem. So when within a contact center you put too much focus on the channel, you end up creating different types of experiences based on different channels. And inconsistent experiences is a major obstacle to satisfying your customers because they expect, regardless whether I contact you through phone or through email or WhatsApp or whatever else, I should get the same result because at the end of the day, you are a single brand. You should have a single brand voice, and whoever I'm talking with, whatever channel I'm using, I need to get this same exact experience. So the whole thing is the customers don't think about the channel, they just think about their problem. And when you have an omni-digital strategy, not only you're available on the right channels, but you provide the exact same experience across all of these channels. That's the difference.
I suppose that consistency is key, isn't it? Not just from a customer perspective, but for example, if you're an agent working within an organization, you want to be able to provide the same level of great customer service to everyone that gets in contact, regardless of the different method they're using. And I suppose if you have a truly omni-digital offering, you can do that. You can provide that service regardless of the different method.
Absolutely, and that's the key. But it sounds like it's just about the customer, which is true. It's a lot about the customer, but it's about the company as well. Being omni-digital means having control over everything that's happening. It means not focusing on the channel anymore, focusing only on the customer experience. That means better experiences, which turns into better loyalty, which turns into higher revenue, but it's also better management and higher productivity. So all the pieces of the puzzle come together when you go omni-digital, because you satisfy your customers, but it's actually a benefit for you as a brand, not just for the end customer.
So from that perspective, it sounds relatively straightforward. So surely what you could do is just get your brand and make it available on multiple different digital channels. Is it as simple as that?
You would think so. No, it's not as easy as that. It should be, but it's not as easy as that. The thing is, there are quite a few obstacles to a proper omni-digital strategy. I'm just going to highlight 3 of them, right? The most obvious one. The first thing is your customers have multiple digital identities. I mean, I follow you on Twitter and I follow you on LinkedIn, and I'm sure you have multiple other digital identities out there. But if you want to talk to me through email, julian.rio@ringcentral.com, or many other emails I'm using on a daily basis, you could reach out to me on Twitter. I would be marketing_JR. If you were to reach out to me on LinkedIn, that would be a different URL. On WhatsApp, that would be my phone number. And on all these different channels, we have different identities, because that's how the whole digital world has been built. The problem with this is, if you don't know who are the people you're talking to, because they have these various identities, you can't satisfy them easily. And you need to keep in mind that in average, customers use 7 different channels to engage with brands, because maybe in the morning when I'm going to work and I'm taking the metro, maybe sending a message through Facebook Messenger is convenient to me. Maybe if it's at night, I'm on my computer, I have a complex problem, I'd rather send a long email with attachments. Maybe during the day, I'm on an e-commerce platform, I'd rather use a live chat to have a conversation. So we have all these different channels that we use to communicate with brands, and we have so many different identities for these different channels. Now, if you don't know who is the person you're talking to, you're going to end up asking him to identify himself over and over again, and everyone hates that. You're going to ask him to repeat the problem over and over again. I mean, that's a major point of frustration. So the first thing is, we have multiple digital identities, so you need to be able to recognize, identify your customers easily without asking them questions over and over again. That's basically what we recommend brands to do, and that's how RingCentral Engage Digital does it, just merging the different identities. The second major obstacle to a proper omni-digital strategy is all about the fact that teams are organized in silos. You look at any contact center around the world, they all have the same way of working, meaning that traditionally we were doing phone only, or maybe letters as well. So we had a team organized around it, and then we start building new silos. Email comes along, we build new technology, a new team, new KPIs, new metrics, new training, and so on. Live chat comes along, then we do the same. Then it comes with social media, then messaging, and then we end up having all these different technological silos that are not really merged together. And because we have all these silos, there is a lack of communication, and you end up with the inconsistent customer experience I was telling you about earlier. Because if you contact the email team, you're never going to get the exact same answer as if you were contacting the Facebook team, because the teams are organized around the silos. That's bad for the customer. That's also bad for the company, because when you have multiple silos, you are totally unable to deal with spikes of traffic, because your Twitter team, when there is a bad buzz, they can deal with 10 times the amount of messages they usually receive, because they're not built for it. And the email guys, they won't be able to help, because they are using different technology, different training. So the second obstacle to a proper digital strategy is to remove all the silos and just have a team of experts that can respond on any channel, but respond efficiently based on their skills and their competency. And then there is a third obstacle, which is all about managing larger volume of messages, because it's mechanical. I mean, if you add new channels, you get more volume. You may have people who will tell you that's going to do call deflection, and at the end of the day, you're going to have less. That's not true. There's going to be some call deflection, and you're definitely going to receive slightly less volume on the phone. But overall, when you add new channels, you get new messages, because all these silent customers that didn't want to talk to you earlier because it was not convenient to them, now they're going to come and they're going to have a discussion with your brand. But the thing is, because in digital everything is asynchronous, it's so much easier, so much cheaper to manage compared to phone, that actually this engagement, you can make it happen if you have the right tools, you can have more engagement with the same number of agents in your company just by increasing productivity. So you satisfy your customers, you have the new channels, you make it possible, but you need to be aware that there's going to be new messages coming in. It's just a matter of planning for that. But ultimately, even though there are multiple obstacles, because you have all these new channels, because you equip your team properly, then you have the big picture. You know exactly the metrics that you have across the board. If you remove all the silos, you know exactly how to manage your team. And the good thing about it is you no longer need to train your teams. The reason for that is if you have this platform for managing all your channels, whenever you add new channels, and you will need to add new channels sooner or later, you won't need to train your team again because they already know how to use it. They already know how to respond and satisfy customers.
So potentially you've highlighted some of the obstacles there, and that does make it slightly more difficult than I was saying before in terms of just adding, WhatsApp team, and you're right, it doesn't make any sense to have interconnected not interconnected siloed business systems. So when customers get in touch with you, and obviously this is an area that you specialize in, where do you tell a brand to start with this? What's sort of the starting point? What's your planning phase effectively?
So the first thing you have to do is don't touch anything, but really look at your own contact center, really look at your own company, and really look at the perception that your leaders have of your contact center. If internally the contact center is considered as a cost center, then you're going to have to turn it around, because a contact center is actually a potential profit center. Because satisfying customers is the key to customer loyalty, and we all know that it's much cheaper to retain a customer than acquire a new one. So reducing churn, satisfying customer is actually key to any business. And if your contact center is not perceived as a profit center, then there is a major problem to solve before you do anything else. Once you have that ready and you understand that contact center have a potential, then you need to make sure that the company embraces customer engagement. Because engaging with your customer is not losing money because you spend time with them, is actually building the future with these customers, plus encouraging them to recommend your brand to other customers, so basically growing your business. So once you have that in place, then it's time to look at what channels do I need. So it's a better understanding of your customers, identify what channels they actually use on a daily basis. And as you mentioned correctly earlier, it's about the geography. What does my country like to use, generally speaking? What does my industry like to use, generally speaking? And being on this right channels, but you have to do it step by step, making sure you are available on the right channel, but that you keep in mind all the obstacles I mentioned earlier. Don't start building silos. Don't lose picture of what your customers really want. Make sure you satisfy them efficiently. Make sure you identify them quickly and early within the conversation. And once you have that ready, it's just about unifying everything within one platform so that you don't create the silos, you increase productivity, you satisfy customer, and everything is going to go very smooth.
Oh, well, it's really fascinating to hear about the importance of digital in customer experience. So, Julian, for the meantime, thanks so much for joining me. If the viewers want to find out more about what you're doing at RingCentral in terms of digital engagement, your Engaged Digital, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, you can definitely engage with us through multiple digital channels, that's for sure. But I would suggest you start by finding out more on ringcentral.com/engage.
Oh, brilliant. Well, Julian, for the meantime, thanks so much for joining me in this webinar.
Thanks a lot, Patrick. Happy to do it again anytime soon.